Like a rat.
Thank you. Hello alchemists. Welcome back to our question of the week. The question we have today is quite interesting. The question is, why do we choose Elixir? Now that's a very interesting question because if you think about the way computers are going nowadays, the CPU clock speed is actually going down, but the core count is going up. Now this makes for an interesting kind of problem now because we need to actually start doing things more concurrent, more parallel. Now, one of the best things about Elixir is that from out of the box, it's already a parallel and concurrent language. So we can already make use of this new trend in computing. Another interesting thing to think about too is that it's not uncommon to have software bugs. We all make bugs. Now, because of that, another great thing about Elixir is that it already comes with something called fault tolerance. That means that we can tolerate making mistakes. We have this great philosophy called let it fail, let it crash. So if something crashes, we get the proper log statements. We can figure out where in our code the problem is. And also the code itself, we can write it so that the code will restart. And if we don't need to restart that process, we can just handle the code, handle these kind of errors if they ever happen. Of course, if necessary. Some things we don't really need to handle. Another nice thing too is that, like I said, it's made to be concurrent. So if we ever have to scale up our computer in terms of a vertical scale, say more CPU cores, it'll automatically handle that for us. And also we can also handle scaling horizontally, so we can already add more machines and connect them. And the best part about when we connect these machines is we can actually already take into consideration distribution, right? We can send jobs across, we can distribute state across. This stuff is all built into the language itself, thanks to the Erlang programming language. Now, something that some people have noticed, and I think is less and less nowadays, is that the community of Elixir and Erlang is actually quite small. But to be honest, it's actually kind of a good thing because it seems like everybody in the Elixir community itself seems to know the language quite well. And you can get quite a lot of helpful people. I mean, the guy who made Elixir is Jose, and Jose is just everywhere. He's always on blogs, he's always on podcasts, and he's actually always available to ask questions, or sorry, to answer questions. And so are quite a few other people. And there's also quite a lot of books coming out, and don't forget, we can still leverage books written in Erlang because after all, Elixir just compiles down to Erlang itself. And also another nice thing to think about is when we are scaling out, the data itself is immutable. So the best thing about that is that there's no surprises when we do start doing things parallel. We don't need to worry about, did this thing change, or do I have to change it, or this kind of thing. The data is immutable, so we never have to worry if something changes without our notice. And even when we're doing things in sequential order, the data still doesn't ever change. So we never need to worry about that also. And something that really blew my mind is the idea of pattern matching. I mean, once I discovered pattern matching and what I can do with it, wow, it immediately cleaned up most of my code for me. It's just amazing. And the fact that now Rust adopted pattern matching, I just wish more languages had pattern matching. And another interesting thing too is when you're developing, it's always great to write test code, right? To test your code. Now, what could be easier to test than functions? You put your input data in and you test what comes out. I mean, the fact that there's no kind of side effects, there's no difficulty setting things up. You just create your data for your test, pass it to the function, and test to see what comes out. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. And let's not forget, and I've already said this a few times before, is that it's built on top of Erlang. Erlang's been out there for, I think, over 30 years by now. They've solved so many problems that are related to the day, right? Everybody wants to make websites and systems that can handle a lot of users, a lot of data. And that's exactly what Erlang solved a long time ago. They make telephone switches that need to handle a lot of connections, a lot of processes going on, and keep a high uptime. Everybody desires this in a piece of software, so it really just fits anything nowadays. And also the performance is just amazing. I mean, I get most of my tests done within, I think the longest test suite I have is 30 seconds. But I mean, most test suites, just a few milliseconds, because we can distribute this across all of our cores just out of the box. And that's because it's a compiled language and it takes use of all of our system resources when it needs to. And I mean, just as you can see, I have so many things that I can say about Elixir and why it's just the perfect choice for us. I hope it could be a good choice for you guys. And that's all I have to say for now. Please subscribe if you haven't. Feel free to ask us more questions. We're here to answer anything you have. This is Alan from Blangora. Thanks. Hi. Please feel free to ask us any questions about Elixir, Flutter, or anything else in programming. Here's our YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll answer your questions every Friday. Ya man tai ge dak man all. Yo wenti ji da wen wo.